This video is made possible by our sponsors, Google, Vonage, and 8x8. See the video description for links and more information.
Hello, welcome to another Kranky Geek event. This is our 6th year holding events for WebRC developers. And as you've probably noticed, this is our first virtual event. While we do dearly miss seeing many of you in person, this does give us the opportunity to share the live event with a much larger audience internationally. If you don't know us, Chad Hart, Tsahi, Levent-Levi, say hi. Chris,
hi there.
Chris is actually hiding behind the scenes, managing the live stream and looking at the YouTube chat. Well, maybe we'll see his face later on, but you won't see him right now. If you're on the social medias, we're using the hashtag Kranky Geek. You can go check there for updates and posts, and please share that. All right. With the online format, we've moved to an abbreviated schedule that's going to last around 3 hours. We've done our best to try to accommodate different time zones, but apologies to our friends in Asia. We're not too time zone friendly there. But you can find this full schedule online along with session descriptions and more information on the speakers if you just go to krankygeek.com. And a note on logistics for today. So this is live. There's nothing pre-recorded. It's 100% live. We're doing this live, one, because we're huge real-time communications advocates, and it should be live. But with that, being said, we're not professional broadcasters, so please bear with us if we have any technical difficulties, which hopefully doesn't happen. This is also a continuous stream, so you will see we'll break to the kind of intermission, scrolling window to thank our sponsors in between. That should only last a minute or two, so don't go too far. But if you need to take a quick bio break, I guess that's a good time to do it. If you have questions, again, this is live. We do have about several minutes reserved for each session for Q&A. Please type your questions into the YouTube chat session. Those will get relayed to us, and Tsahi and I will ask them to the speakers. All right. And lastly, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube stream. If you leave or come back, that'll help you just get notifications that the live stream's going on, or should something happen and we need to switch streams.
Yep. Now, one thing we didn't do this year was shirts. We do t-shirts every year, so Chad decided to do his own.
I made my own.
Okay, you can see that. Now, I've got another t-shirt which speaks rather well with the ones that we have in the sponsors. I actually placed this morning the 2014 shirt, and we've got here Talkbox and Atlassian. And the thing is that for those of you who know, Atlassian and Talkbox were both one of our first sponsors in our first event alongside Google. Atlassian later on acquired Jitsi, and then 8x8 acquired Jitsi from Atlassian, and they are sponsoring this event. And we've got Vonage, who acquired Talkbox, which are sponsoring this event as well. So we'd like to thank all of our sponsors. Yes, we're back where we started. So I'd like to thank all of our sponsors, including, of course, Google, for making this happen. So I think that there's a question to be asked. We're like 7 years into these events and more than 10 years now into WebRTC itself. And the question is WebRTC still interesting? Is there anything new that we can talk about that we haven't discussed in the past and we haven't seen in the past? And I think the answer is yes. And especially since this year changed everything with COVID-19, the pandemic that is here, I tried looking for different metrics for that, and this is the one that I've seen that was really interesting for me. If you look at Chrome status itself and the metrics there, you can find there different metrics to different API calls that Chrome collects and checks how many page views, page loads are for each one of these API calls. When you look at the WebRTC APIs, you can see this graph. This one is specifically for Get User Media, but it's true for other APIs as well. And it simply shows how WebRTC grew. From something like 0.5% of page loads across the web for someone using a Chrome browser, it went up to about 0.25, 0.3 in the first wave of the pandemic. then it went down again, but not to the old ways, and then it grew up again. And you can see that there's a kind of a new normal that is going to be higher than the adoption curve that we've seen so far. And I found it really interesting to see that it's not only us developers that work more with WebRTC, it's also the adoption itself that has grown.
Yeah, and that's just Chrome page loads, right? Just on the web, really.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
So I also actually looked at another data set to kind of see if I could find, or see similar trends. So I took a look at how WebRTC was doing on, public GitHub projects. And, I essentially here look for repos that contain a WebRTC specific, API or keyword. And I filter out false hits and then track to see if they have any activity in a given month. And you can see here the number of active users who've had some kind of activity related to WebRTC, in the WebRTC repo peaked in April when the pandemic peaked. We hit more than 10,000 unique developers who had some kind of activity. And that's certainly a big number, right? 10,000 unique developers. Now this has gradually died down, a little bit as we get into the fall here, but it's still past the peak levels. Now, interesting. If you look at the total number of unique WebRTC repos, that actually didn't peak until July. It seemed a bunch of developers looked at WebRTC in late April, but didn't really start to do anything with it until July. Now, is this good or is this bad? On one hand, it seemed to take some months for developers to get going. On the other, they did get going, and the overall number of WebRTC repos is still historically high.
So let's talk about the key themes, what we're actually going to have in this event today. Okay. And we'll start with one of the main themes, which is scaling. We've got a lot of companies today trying to scale WebRTC. We've seen the growth in the graphs. They happen because people are using WebRTC more, but also we've got meetings that are a lot larger than they used to. This is why we've got 2 sessions today that are covering this key theme of scaling. We are going to have a session by Vonage about scaling and one from Facebook about scaling. Both of them will show what they have done to deal with the challenges that they've seen with the growing usage and the large groups of video calls that start to appear and come into higher demand within their platforms. The second one that we're going to have, the second theme is going to be around privacy. Privacy has become something very interesting this last year. Some of it because of what happened to Zoom with their encryption stuff, and some just because end-to-end encryption is becoming more and more interesting in recent years. And for that, we're going to have 8x8, come and talk about end-to-end encryption and how that is achieved with WebRTC today. The last theme is a theme that we show almost every year. And this is WebRTC itself. What are the new APIs? What are changes that are being made by the browser vendors and how WebRTC is evolving over time? We're going to have the traditional session from Google about libWebRTC and the change that they are making to the main library of WebRTC and to Chrome. And we're going to start a browser panel discussion that we've started last year as a tradition. And this year we're going to again have all browser vendors, and this one is going to be very interesting. The reason is not because they don't do interesting things every year, but this year we're going to hear from them and understand how they have changed their priorities and what they have done and are doing this year differently because of the growing demand for WebRTC. So stay with us, and we're going to start our sessions in a moment.
Yep, we'll be back in just a minute.
Yep, in the first session with Facebook. See you there.
Thank you to our sponsors. Vonage, creating engaging experiences that move with your customers. See more at vonage.com/communications-APIs. 8x8, embed full-featured WebRTC meetings in your app with the Jitsi as a service beta. Sign up at 8x8.com/Kranky Geek. We would like to thank Google for supporting the WebRTC community and this event series. Learn more about WebRTC at webrtc.org.